If you're brand new to Lightroom, I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about Lightroom. So first, when you load up Lightroom, you're going to go up to File. You're going to want to do Add Photos. You're going to go wherever your photos are uploaded to. All right, so you put in however many you want selected in. Then you could go through and roughly just look at them and untoggle or toggle the ones that you want to keep to edit. And you go to Add Photo, and it's going to add it over here on the left side. And then what I recommend you doing instantly, all right, get in a good habit of this. Go right here to the plus, create folder. So let's say you're going to do, mine's going to be racing. Okay, so you make a folder, and then in the folder is a whole category. Then you could be, the date. There you go. So that would be a folder. So now wherever the picture is, you could just pick it up, drag it, drop it in, and it's here. So now you don't have to worry about anything over here. I highly recommend later on getting in good condition using this, especially if you're a photographer. A way that I do it is right here. It's the client's name, and then I have all their printouts that they all want right in here. So I know all the sizes and everything, so I can print them out and stay organized. But coming back to here, when you have a couple things imported, right, you could either compare and contrast with this right here. Okay, that will show two photos. You could have it so that it shows a bunch, and I'll show you a better example of that. So I could have it so I could just see one picture. I could do a compare. So let's say I want this one, and then I would tap this one, and then I could zoom in on both and see which one's most sharp. I love compare this. I use this one a lot, but usually these ones I don't use too much, but it might help you out. So the best way to navigate the bar down here is to either use the scroll wheel. So if I'm down here, I use the scroll, just drag it, drop it. If you have your mouse up here, you could click through it, just use your scroll wheel. If you put your mouse down here and you use your scroll wheel, it goes farther, then you go through photos quicker. So another thing that I usually do use a lot is control zooming. So if you just normally click on a subject to zoom in on, it zooms in quite a bit, right? But if you hold down control and you drag exactly what you want in frame, it'll give you exactly what you want. So let's say I just want the wheel, the whole wheel's in it. But if I went to tap in on it, you see how it zooms in too far. Okay, and then the first thing I ever do when I edit photos, you want your whites and blacks to be as much range in between each other. So what that means is if I go to the white and I hold down Alt and I drag it, okay, you want to increase whites until you see how that's all turning bright colors, like on the bottom left and everything. You want to make sure there's not that many specks. And then you want to do the opposite for black. So you want to scroll down until you start seeing everything turn black. What this pretty much means is right where there's black right there. Did you see it like right there? That means there's no color in this image at all. This is pure black. But if I wait until they don't clip, now if I zoom in, it's not just pure black, there's color. Same with the whites. If I go all the way, look at the bottom left. That's solid white. There's no color to it. There's no detail. So whites is pretty much your brightest colors. Blacks is your darkest colors. So another thing I highly recommend you doing is going to View and then coming down to Edit Panels and putting histogram on. This is your histogram right up here. So what we pretty much do is if you look up here, right, your whites are the farthest thing to the right. So when I Alt and click, so like if I went over here, you see how they all hug that right side? That means they're all clipping, means that this all has no color in it. But if I go down enough where nothing really clips, where it almost starts going up the side, that's exactly where you want it. Same with the blacks. If they go all to the left, then you just can't see anything in the photo. So you want to go right before they start touching the sides, and there you go. There's a perfectly balanced photo right there. So white balance, you could tap this button right here, and if there's anything pure white in the picture, it will auto correct it. But when there's no white, you have to do it yourself, right? The closest thing to being white would probably be this seat right here. So if I do come here and click it, that would be quote unquote white balanced. But a better example of that is, so she actually has a white shirt on, right? But there's a harsh yellow light. So if I come over here and click right here, it makes it so that entire spot is actually white, and it auto-corrects it for you. But now coming back here, so now that I have this at the light that I want, you can make it a little bit cooler if you want, a little bit warmer if you want that. So now let me walk you through how I would edit this photo. So exposure is your total brightness. So I turn this down a lot. You see how it goes to the left too much? That means this is too dark. If I go over here too much, you see how it's all on the right, it's too much. So what I usually try to do, unless the picture's not close to where you want it at all, I try to keep it in between -1 and +1 exposure. But sometimes, you take a super dark or super bright photo, so that won't always apply. Contrast is, if I take this all the way to the left, watch the colors up here. So I do this smushes all the colors. It makes all the colors more look-alike. So there's not that much depth, there's not that much detail. Instead of a wide range of colors, it slims them down. and then the opposite if you go the other way. So if I start going this way, it starts making the color separate more, but then it makes your image darker. And what I usually do is just keep in between the 20s, -20, +20, because I feel like too much or too little really affects the image, like not in a good way, but it is all up to your style. So I would get the contrast up like a little bit. Highlights, so if whites are right here on the right side, blacks are over here on this side. So highlights are right before the whites, okay? So they're gonna be right in here. You see how everything's moving just in this little section? So we move the highlights, that's all that's moving. And same with the shadows. Shadows is right after black, so it's gonna be all right in here, so watch. See how that's all moving? So highlights are the ones right before whites, so it wouldn't be affecting this necessarily, but it's gonna be like these right here, like the little accents. So if I turn the highlights down, you see how it just barely, all this back here that's kind of just glowing, it turns them up or down. So I would keep those down a little bit. Shadows, so think of it like this is all lit up right here, right? So the shadows won't do anything to it. But since this right here is all a shadow because he's being backlit from the sun, this is what will be affected. So I would up it a little bit. So now you could get into curves. If you're just now starting out, you just want to learn everything, I would tell you to take some time to not use curves. Everyone tells you to use curves, but it could get very complicated very quickly. The blacks are all right here, shadows are all right here, midtones and contrast lies in here, then highlights, and then whites. That is how you read it vertically, okay? Okay, so now I would just tell you to recommend not to do any curves for now. So now to color. So you could either white balance it like I was showing you, or you could edit the photo exactly how you want and then try to judge what you would want after the fact. So I'm gonna keep it like that for now. So temperature is either blue or yellow, okay? Tint's either green or purple. So green and purple you don't really have to mess with too much. Blue and yellow is usually what you usually have to mess with because it's either the sky reflection or the sun. But when you're indoors, green and purple, that helps you out a lot. Vibrance is the strength of a color. So as you can see, if I just turn it up a lot, it puts way more color in. Saturation is kind of just brightening colors. It almost puts like an oil spill effect on most things. Like if you look down here, like that's supposed to be just silver, but it kind of puts like this rainbow effect on the image. But color mixer right here, I definitely recommend understanding and using quite a bit. If you ever do car photography, this is what you need to learn right here. So right here, there's red all on his helmet, right? And if I do not want the red, you would take the saturation, the center part, and just cut it all the way out. Now you see how it eliminates the red for the most part. And the luminance is the shine or the black of that color. So if I want red and I want it to shine, I would do this. Or if you want it just to be dark, you could do that as well. So if I did green, like I could change it so he's wearing yellow. If I use hue, I can change so it's neon green. So hue is the actual color, saturation is the amount of color, luminance is how it would reflect. So do you want it to be dark and have no light illuminating, or do you want it bright and be reflective? Like this color right here, I'm not sure what this pink color would be. If you literally just tap this button right here and then tap it on the bike, it takes you to the exact color. And then look, I could customize the exact. So, and you're like, why would that help a lot for car photography? So look at this. So if this is a yellow Lamborghini, right? If I did not want it to be yellow, I could go to the yellows tab because this is what the color is. And I'm like, I want it a little orange. Like you could literally change whatever color you want the car to be. I want a little green, you know, make it neon green. Yeah, look, if I come to here and it's a yellow car, like, I want it a little bit orange. I want it to be green. Actually, I just want it to be white, gray, whatever you want it to be. You could even do other cars like this. Tap what color it is. I want it to be pink. I want it to be orange, yellow, gray. It's really useful to understand how to use the colors when it comes to car photography. If you're just starting out too, people will recommend you just to use the auto. And if I just click auto on this does the job sometimes, but I would tell you not to use auto and get comfortable in understanding how everything works editing wise. So if you just keep tapping auto, you're not going to learn anything and you're not going to get better. And auto, I guarantee if you spent a week understanding everything I'm teaching you, you'll get better than auto the second day you watch this. I promise you, auto you do not want to usually use I'm telling you, you'll learn so much from just understanding everything here. And just right here, that you could do the color mixer. This is more in depth. You could do this if you want, but you would just take the eyedropper. I want to change this color. You could change it to whatever you want. If it's actually not that color that you're wanting, you could change it to what you want. So right here is the actual color, that little black dot. This white dot's what you're wanting it to turn into. You could do the brightness of it, the luminance. But for the most part, I just use the color mixer. I feel like point color, you could definitely end up wasting time in here if you I just tell you to keep it simple right here. Color grading, so your midtones is the middle color. Shadows is the middle to left over colors, and then the highlights is the middle to the right over. So like midtones, so it's pretty much the main color and main lit up part of this entire image. So if I start going blue, this whole image is going to start to turn slowly blue. Okay, but if I went to shadows, only the shadows will start turning blue. Which you can see is dark right here, he's becoming darker. But if I did highlights and started to make them blue, he's not being touched, just the highlights up here are being touched. So like right here is dust, so I would want the dust to be a little bit yellow. I usually only use highlights or shadows. Midtones, I feel like focus too much of the image, so I usually just keep the midtones the same and just use highlights. But for effects, this is better for masking, I would say. But if I want to do texture to make everything softer or more grainy, I could use texture. Clarity's just the clearness of an image. Dehaze, another one for car photography. This looks amazing. If there's any smoke, clouds, or anything, you see how you could start seeing everything through it. But this is a bad example, but dehaze helps a lot when it's foggy. If you want something to be foggy, you would go this way. Vignette, okay? Not vignette or whatever other people say. It is darkness or lightness around the edge of the picture. So if I negative it out, that's vignette, but you'll usually want to do a little bit, and a little bit usually always looks good. Like a little vignette right there, that looks beautiful, you know? But reverse vignette, when you put it white, I never really use this. Grain, you probably never want to put grain in an image. Grain is just what makes it look like TV static. Unless that's your style or you don't have that good of it. Like if you have a really good and expensive camera, there's no point in putting grain in your $2,000 camera just to put grain in it. Because if you would have took this, you know, on an old phone, the grain would already been in it and then you'd be money ahead. So I never usually use the grain, but some people like it for an effect, but I would recommend just not using it. And then sharpness, all right? So sharpness is just how sharp the image is. It doesn't do a great job because you see how it almost looks like grain, but it's just like zebra print or like, it's a hard thing to compare it to, but sharpening the other way makes everything soft. But what I would recommend using is denoise. Denoise is huge. If you do not have denoise, if you do not have Lightroom, and there's only one thing I could mention to you that would make you get it, it would be denoise. So let me come here to a dark photo. This is not a good picture taken by me, right? It is super, super dark. You see all the color, everything's on the left side, but if I turn the exposure up a little bit, you see all this grain that gets introduced? Now if I took denoise, this won't be a great example, but if an object was already lit up really good in the photo, but there was a lot of grain, this would be perfect. So you could denoise up to 100%, right? And I do not recommend it because it makes anything soft, right? But this is his eye, okay? You can't even tell what that is with the grain. And when I let go, you could kind of tell there's an eye there. I kind of keep it at like 50. And I'm warning you right now, if you are using a laptop that is not good, this estimated time right here to get this done, for me, I'm on a desktop, it's 9 seconds. If you have a laptop, this will take way longer. And usually, if you use a laptop, it will just crash the laptop because how physically taxing it is for the GPU. But what you want to do, if you can do it, is enhance it. So now watch this image clear up. So like, you can't even tell me what you're really looking at if you didn't see the entire image before. Look at that. Now you could actually tell that's an ear, nose, face, eyes. So like, this is insane. Usually you post things on Instagram anyways. This would look like a sharp picture, right? This looks way better than, look, if I turn this up, Then you could right click on the image. You could go up to ungroup stack. That's how you redo this. This is the before. Grainy as ever. That's the after. That's insane. Now here, let me use the tip that I showed you. You go to the compare. If I had to sell Lightroom or be a salesman, this would be the picture I would show them. This is what you could obtain by clicking one button in Lightroom and it automatically showing you what this is. You can't even tell me what this is. Right here, you could tell me it's a face. I highly recommend using denoise if the image needs it. My camera's native ISO. If you're using a camera, that is what you want to look up. Your native ISO. Whatever your native ISO is, you want to stay at or below that. So if mine's 800 ISO, so I want to keep around 800, maybe 1600 and below to keep really sharp, not grainy pictures. But coming back to this, if I had to and I had tons of grain, I would use denoise, but I don't have to. So now if I go to crop, this is what I love. This is when you would use auto right here. You see this auto button? Tap auto and it automatically adjusts so everything's flat. Usually if you can't do that, I recommend you control clicking, and let's say this is a horizon, so I would tap here, follow the horizon and go to here, and then it would auto straight it to whatever you just clicked. Let's get into masks. So this is right here, the editing. This one's cropping like I showed you. This one right here, the circle. This is where you can really step up your game editing. So first off, I'm gonna show you linear gradients. Right here's your masks tab. You want to create new mask, linear. What I usually do for my gradients is I always do one from the bottom up. So I would tap right here, pull up where I want it. So I'm gonna pull up like till right here, and then that whole area is affected. So I could scroll back up. I can mess with the exposure. I can make it so it's a little bit brighter there. I usually make it so it's a little bit darker. Create a new mask, make another linear gradient. You can make some coming this way. You can make the brightness down. You can make the brightness come up. And then if I want to make a gradient, right? And look, I put this right here in the middle. I could add or subtract. And if I click subtract, I could subtract the subject, which is him. And now the thing will go behind him. It won't even affect him, which I absolutely love. But another thing I usually do is the gradient from the bottom. I do a radial gradient, which is a circle. So I usually go where the sun is, put it over a little bit, exposure it up a little bit. If it's, depending what time of the day it is, it's a little bit more yellow. Put some yellow right here in the radial effect. So I usually would subtract him out of it because it's behind him. If I want a brush gradient, you could scroll wheel down and make your brush small. You could increase it and then just make it big so you could paint like that. But another thing I do for radial gradient, especially for cars, just brighten up the wheels a little bit. Color range, so if I click color and I tap this is green. I would just affect the green. If I tap this will only be the pink, and that's all that will be affected. Just like I was showing you with the other, you could do it with this as well. Subject, so this would automatically select the subject usually. People, what is very nice about people, so when you take a picture that you could clearly see a person in. Okay, so you see how this edit, you could see everyone in it, right? So if I click create new mask and click people, look, it'll automatically highlight all the people that are in here. So if I hover over him, it has him lined out, lined out, lined out. I could do all people, right? Or I could click watch, I could click him. I do not want to just the entire person. I could just do the facial skin, or I could just do the body skin. I could just do the eyebrows, lips, teeth, hair, beard, face, clothes. Clothes are nice. You could change the color of the clothes he's wearing if you click on the clothes. That is very helpful. I'm back to masking. So if I want to mask the sky out, if the sky's in it, it will automatically highlight the sky. You could change the color of the sky. Background, it's everything but the subject. So if I wanted to make it stand out so it's more just him, I could just lower the background a little bit. But now if I want to make this edit look really good, I'd go back through, go to mask. So right here is the sun. So look, if I come down here, this is what I was telling you about masks. You could unhaze it, and look, you could kind of make it a little bit more brighter, make it look more dramatic, make it look sharper. But what I would usually do is maybe make it a little bit more blurry. And now look, I can click subject. Now look, you could dehaze him, brighten him up back a little bit, make it a little bit more blue. Now what I like to do a lot too, so look, I can make it really blue to where I want it, and then you see how this is supposed to be black, but it's all turning blue. I go to the blue color mixer and just kill it so it actually looks black. I don't kill it all the way, but just kill it enough. And then you could even put more yellow back in it if you would want. Now a little keyboard shortcut I like to use a lot. So it's right below your backspace, but it's a backslash key, okay? So look, this instantly shows you your before and after pic, which helps so much. I love that tip. backslash to go before and after. Another thing that's really nice is AI remove. So right here is remove. So let's say if I come right here and I want to remove anything, I would just take this, scroll to where I want it, and I can just tap each thing, and it does a very good job at getting rid of it. But if I wanted something crazier, look, if I really like this photo, but this guy's walking in the way of it, so you would click generative AI, and then you would just brush out as good as you would want. Brush them all out. So it's selected, and you click apply, and then it should get rid of him and give you some options of how you would want the edit to look like. So, I mean, he's gone, but you see how that looks weird, so you have options to go through on the side over here. If you don't like any of them, you could refresh another set of 3 until you like it. Or what I recommend doing, going into Photoshop if you're on your desktop, and you could get access to some really good ones. So like, look, this is what it came up with. But if I just took this, right-clicked on it, right, you could reset the edit like this. That's right there at the bottom. But if you right-click it, go up to Edit in Photoshop, it's integrated, so it will just open in Photoshop right up and take you right into it. So now, if you want a Photoshop tutorial, let me know. But look, if I just take my zoom tool, zoom in a little bit, come down like this. So now look, if I just take my lasso, let's do a rough little draw out from them. There he is, generate a fill, right click, click generate. I like Photoshop's a little bit more than Lightroom's, but I hope within the year it gets on the same level. Look at that. That is so much better than Lightroom. And they also give you 3 options. You could pick exactly what you would want. If you don't even like those ones, look, you just click generate and it generates another set. Another thing to know now too is with AI, if you post this straight on Instagram, it will say AI info, just so people know that you've tampered with this image. But now instead of this with the person in it, you could go ahead and make this look better if you would want to, but I'm just doing this for the sake of the video. But now let's say you got this photo exactly where you want. You would go and right click on it, come up to export. All of this don't usually do, just click export. So you want your quality to be 100%. Usually it's at 90, 80, 100%, unless you're trying to fit a file size for something, which you would just bring it down a little bit and that would decrease the file size. So look, if I wanted 100% at the bottom left right here, it's gonna be 9.5 megabytes. But it's for a YouTube thumbnail and it needs to be 4 megabytes. There you go. Now it's at 3.5. That's the highest quality you could use for that. But usually always keep it 100%. Dimensions full size. Image type JPEG. I never use any of these down here. If you do, you can, but if you ever use denoise, it sometimes goes to a DNG. If you want to include your watermark, you have to upload a logo. So if I click upload watermark, you go to this gear icon. You could type in just your name. You could edit the size that you would want over it if you're setting a watermark or anything. But if you put in a graphic like I do, now look, I could just hurry up, throw my thing right up. Now look, now it's watermarked. So if I uploaded tons of images, that will all appear right there. And then now if I went back, click done, and I went to export, that will stay there. File naming, what I usually do is custom name, right? And then let's say this is riding, so I'm gonna say, racing. So I would say racing, and then date or whatever you would want. And then you would do start number. I usually just do 1, and it will just numerically order them when you go to export. And then this right here, keep none, this keep sRGB. And after that, you're good to export it. And once you export it, it goes right into your folder, and that is how you use Lightroom. If you have any questions about Lightroom, anything that I didn't cover that you wish I would have, comment it. I would love to help you guys out, explain anything more in depth if this didn't make sense to you. I would love to make it as clear as possible. If you want one for Photoshop, if you want one for Premiere Pro, if you want more in depth on even on this to some certain extent, if you want videos of me actually taking pictures of a photography session to putting it into my computer, then editing it, then exporting it, then getting it to the client, I would love to do a video on that. Just let me know what you're interested, and I hope you have a great day, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.